Well, K-State has a new commitment in football. This time it's 2022. So some momentum gathered here with the JUCO offensive tackle for 2021. Now a recruiting win over Kansas. By taking in, I have been trying to avoid this name, but it was going to come up eventually. Tobi Osunsanmi is what we're going with right now. He's from Wichita East High School in Wichita. A lot to like, especially about the athletic profile of this guy, in my humble opinion. The problem here is not a splashy commitment. 5'4", 2-star right now on Rivals. Kansas, the only other major offer. Not a splashy commitment on paper. Not enough, certainly, to assuage the crowd that's been very disgruntled with K-State's recruiting abilities and efforts here lately. That doesn't mean it should take away from what this is, though, which to me is the kind of guy that can be very, very important to K-State's program. Debatably, more important than some of the players that K-State has missed that have caused a lot of consternation among the fan base. Because this is a developmental guy. This is a high upside, low floor, somebody that's very raw, needs a lot of fine-tuning, very athletic prospect that K-State just landed. And in a developmental program, right? That's what K-State is. That's what North Dakota State was. That's what K-State really is going to have to be to stand a chance of really competing moving forward. These are the kinds of players that you need to get and develop. Reminds me a lot of what we heard about Daryl Jones a couple of years ago out of Coffeyville, who came in as a guy, I mean, Derek Young has preached for a long time, NFL-level athleticism, but just very, very, very raw. Needs to develop the skills. And you hope that he turns into an NFL corner someday. Devontae Pritchard is another one. Now, he was a higher profile recruit in terms of what his Rivals profile said. So I think K-State fans respected that one more. But linebacker and a guy at linebacker, like that's a position where it's tougher to get on the field right away just because of some of the physical demands and what you need size-wise. And we saw that with Jay Harris. Another guy in that same mold here that K-State just landed, Tobi Osunsanmi. 6'3", 210, but here's what you should like about it. This is a guy that ran a 10.8 100-yard dash. That is very fast. Very fast. Projectable athlete, developmental player. This is not a name that I think you're likely to hear a lot from in the next 2 or 3 years. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe after a year in the program. You're certainly not likely to hear much about him or from him in his first year in the program. Special teams, potentially, if he's athletic enough, could get on the field special teams-wise, but making an impact at linebacker, probably not going to really hear his name for a while. But K-State needs those kind of guys in the program, and they need, especially if the recruiting is going to continue basically where it's been at, which is a step above from Snyder 2.0, but not 2 or 3 steps. These kind of guys need to be in there, and you need to be hitting on these guys. Like Daryl Jones, Devontae Pritchard, Tobi. Those guys need to be hitting. Yes, Mitch saw exactly what I did there. No, just Tobi. We're calling him Tobi. We're calling him Tobi. His name's Tobi. That is not factually incorrect. His name is Tobi. These kind of guys need to be developing throughout the program, and you need to hit on a good percentage of these to supplement a roster that is not going to be as athletic as its peers in a lot of places. But you need to have 2 or 3 of these. You need to have 2 or 3 transfers every year that are going to be the more upper echelon athletes, upper echelon players that you can't just pull straight out of high school. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. You can have most of your roster be fairly average, but you need to sprinkle in some of the high-level athletes and guys that have developed and turned into really good players. Like you can even look back to like the 2012 team at K-State. That had some really, really good players. But a lot of just decent players. But when you supplement a lot of decent with, oh, hey, here's a budding young Tyler Lockett who turns into an NFL All-Pro. Here is Arthur Brown, who's a transfer that was a 5-star recruit that you can just plop into the middle of the defense. Here's a Colin Klein, who has grinded it out and developed through the program. Here's a Ty Zimmerman, like an all Big 12 safety, an elite safety. It's just been a guy who was a quarterback from Junction City who came in and grinded his way and developed his way through the program. Like you need some of those guys. Like that to me is what this can represent here. If nothing else, man, I love the whole attitude of his rivals profile says safety, but he's going to play linebacker. That I love. I love that that's this staff's philosophy. It's the TCU philosophy. Just get long, fluid athletes that are not as big at linebacker. And I shouldn't just credit it only to TCU these days because that's how you have to play in the Big 12.
I just watched his film, and it's funny you just said that because I was thinking to myself, this dude just plays all over the field. So it starts out, he's blocking kicks, he's blocking punts on special teams, punt return. He then plays some safety, which I thought he was okay. And then he's playing Mike and Will linebacker.
Well, I feel like we're spoiling your debut film review segment.
And then he jumps out and plays some nickel. I'm like, what can this guy not do? Can he play some quarterback if we need him to? He's a utility guy.
We are blowing the chance to have your first film review segment. Do you have any? Did you save any bullets in the chamber for a film review segment?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't completely give everything I haven't when it comes to an opinion on him.
Okay.
I just thought it was kind of neat he was playing all over the field.
Okay.
Like he's obviously he's got to be their best player on defense in high school.
We'll save some bullets in the chamber. Maybe tomorrow we can do a first official film review segment. Mitch Fortner film review. Much like Mitch Baum, he can also do it on the other side, not the stats, but he can give you the eye test numbers. Now, I love this guy, and you need guys like this every single year. K-State needs to be continuing to develop these guys. The funny part, or I guess the ironic part about it to me, is that it feels like where K-State has gone now this month recruiting-wise has been about ultimately as predictable as possible from a big-picture view. Now, Derek was here predicting that there would be much, much more in terms of commitments being made, not just to K-State, but across the country, and that's not how it's played out. So it wasn't predictable from that standpoint, but it's predictable from this standpoint. The staff has done a really good job throughout their entire time here of identifying pretty good, like, backup plan number 2 tier prospects. This, to me, would fall into that. JUCO offensive tackle does. Now, maybe will wind up being like a tier 1, like that was a great get. The problem with that is the timing. So they get this JUCO offensive tackle last week, but it came so late in the game as a part of the 2021 recruiting class in June of 2021 that there wasn't time for it to be lauded or to get a lot of acclaim. Everybody kind of moved on past that and like, well, that sucks. They missed on a JUCO tackle or a transfer tackle. They couldn't pull anybody in here. There wasn't proper celebration for it because of when it actually happened. And so now you had this, like, hey, that's back-to-back commitments here in the last week. One that could be a plug-and-play offensive tackle right away, another one that's kind of developmental athlete that you have to be churning out here, but there's not going to be a real parade thrown because it's like K-State didn't land the big fish. The staff predictably has done a good job with some kind of second-tier options, which can still pay big dividends for the program, but it's just not a major name. So you're still gonna have the same jokes cracked by the fans who really follow this on Twitter or message boards. You're still gonna have the same frustration. If this were Caden Crawford, if this were Jaron Kanik, if this were Nick Herzog, if this were Richard Torres, one of those guys would have changed some of that narrative. It would have been viewed as this big win. But this is like the ultimate Bill Snyder, hey, check back with me in 4 years kind of a cat. We won't know if this is a big win for a long time. We don't really know with all of the players that you're getting, but not all players are created equal from a momentum standpoint on the recruiting trail at the time that you do get him. And this is not somebody that is going to give you a ton of juice as far as that is concerned. So I think a lot of fans would have gone into this month saying, yeah, it'll probably be fairly disappointing for me. But I would have countered and said, yeah, well, it may be disappointing for you, but it's probably also still going to be pretty solid. And that, I think, is where we're at. I think that's where we're at right now. After JUCO offensive tackle, whose name I can't remember, that was also hard to pronounce, and safety turned linebacker Tobi, whose last name is something that is very difficult to pronounce, and I'm avoiding both names on purpose.
Tobi.
Yes. That is purely on me. polished broadcaster that I am, I should be coming out there and using Osunsanmi more. Stuck the landing there.
I mean, it's not the toughest last name out there, but of course you're going by the way it looks, is what I'm guessing.
When I stare at it on my computer screen, yeah, it looks very intimidating. Osunsanmi really isn't that bad. You're right. You're right. I need to be better. If I'm going to sit here on the radio and tell everybody else to be better, I need to be better.
You have a whole year to get to know him before he gets here.
I do. So I like this get. There are a lot of things really to like, but it's not flashy. It's not something that's going to shut the haters up, really is what we're talking about. It's not going to shut the haters up. And K-State definitely still could use some more momentum and dominoes to fall here in this 2021 class, or 2022 class, rather. But hopefully that's the first. And they got him in pretty quick. They got the commitment in pretty quick right after a visit this weekend. So there's some efficiency there. And K-State is making some progress. Not necessarily the kind of progress that we all want, not at a rapid enough pace for most of us, but this is some progress, and I think a guy that could pay big dividends here in a couple of years.